Hello, I'm Swifvente. You probably know me from Twitch, as I mainly tend to stream on there. I've been streaming New World during its closed beta test for the majority of the time it's been up. And I really kind of just wanted to talk today about the closed beta test itself, which happened before August. I it's been a pain for me to try and get this video up and done. I've been delaying it so much. It was meant to be done at the start of the month, but I never got around to making it. So I wanted to talk about things that I liked about the beta, things I disliked, and things that honestly could be used to improve the game from here on out. Overall, things I enjoyed doing was farming resources. Resources on the game are sufficiently abundant across the map. I found like in most cases, most of the starting zones had everything you pretty much needed. They weren't too far away, for you to collect if you needed anything. But there was the exception of some of the center areas, which I don't remember the names of off by heart, but those areas tend to have level 20 mobs, so when you're starting off, it tends to not be a very good place to go starting off. Leveling also feels good on resources. I feel like every time I would make it to the next milestone, I'd achieve something. I feel like the pacing for that definitely felt really good. I really enjoyed it. Going from collecting stone to going to iron, and then going onwards from there, especially with mining, felt really, really good. And I really enjoyed it. Walking around the world gave me a sense of determination, kind of similar to Classic WoW, actually. Classic WoW has this, especially when you start off, has this sense of you have to pretty much walk around the entire world, explore it as you go along, finishing start doing quests. Uh, in each new area, as you level, you feel this sense of like adaptation and growth as you go through different zones in World of Warcraft. It felt fairly similar with New World, which is something I really like. Not many, most MMOs these days go with the retail WoW aspect, as to you get a mount, you don't really explore the area, you do quests and then you would move on. The areas don't really matter much. Whereas in New World, it definitely feels like they do. Every place matters, and you'll always be going back to those places as well. The world design felt really immersive. I'll be honest. I spent most of my time in New Light. I think it's New Light. It was its first light, and I really enjoyed just looking around, looking at the bridge that connects to the other side of the island, and just looking at the world. Really, it was it was really nice to just explore and see the environment for what it was. Um, PvP felt alright personally. Like, overall, there were some issues. I'll go into those later. But overall, PvP I enjoyed doing. As long as it was 1v1, I found it could be quite challenging and quite fun. It was definitely down to the skill base, whether or not you want to fight or not. But I'd found myself mainly overwhelmed by like 2v1s, 3v1s. Just in combat scenarios, I could never win, so I never got a good aspect into PvP itself. Not on a 1v1 basis, anyway. A lot of people are. One of the things I noticed is a lot of people are picking meta builds in order to, like to fight anyway, to keep up with anyone you're facing. I feel like by giving a debuff, like a movement debuff that lasts longer, if you've been PvP tagged, definitely needs to happen. Otherwise, people are going to be relying upon these meta builds overall. By making a debuff kind of like that, you'd probably see a shift from the meta builds. Sure, you'd still see people running them, but at least the other builds then have a chance to even be used, you know? You're not relied upon to use this one type of build in order to keep up with someone. Going on from there, I should probably talk about things I disliked about the game. Ability combat sometimes didn't snap properly. I mainly saw this on spear, sometimes with bow as well, but it was different with bow. With the bow, I'd use the AoE ability, one of the AoE abilities, which is meant to apply a bleed. Even though I hit them when I see damage numbers, the bleed doesn't always proc, which seemed to be probably a programming issue. I'm not quite sure. But with the spear, sometimes you would use some of your abilities, and because of the snapping in the game, you completely miss the enemy. You completely go like past them, and it doesn't snap properly. Sure, I don't expect to see perfect snapping, or obviously you're meant to miss if you've played it wrong. But you could be face to face with an enemy, and the snapping will go to like it'll be off by quite a bit, and you'll miss even if they didn't move. Quests have you going halfway across the world. This is one thing that is picked up quite a lot, surprisingly. Uh, I doubt this will be changed at any point, but the difference is I want to do. Quests having you go halfway across the world. Now, I don't think this is going to be changed personally, because it's pretty much set in stone now. But having quests that have you going halfway across the world just to go back can feel really repetitive, especially when they make you do it 4 or 5 times. And I think that's going to be the part of the game that a lot of people won't like, personally. I can tell you right now, when I got to that part, I stopped doing the main quest and I started doing like optional stuff in order to level. Because I had seen it as a sort of a it wasn't needed. It was something I could honestly do later on once I'd leveled up and gotten everything I needed. Because once I had leveled to say 40, I could solo most of the content, so I didn't really need to force myself to do these until I needed upgrades mainly. It was mainly the items that you get from the main quest line which forced you to kind of do it. The difference between that and what most other MMOs tend to do is the game tries to force you to do this instead of you wanting to do this. That's where the fun disappears at. When a game forces you to move to an area over long like distances, that's generally where the fun disappears. Another issue I had, especially with New World, this used to happen in WoW, but I'm not too sure if it still happens because I haven't played it in a very long time. But if you have an interest in skinning and level working, you generally tag the enemy and kill them. And what you'll find, especially this happened in New World like a lot, I would kill something that drops a lot, say like a bison or something, and there'd be someone waiting around just to skin the animals that you're killing. And they'll purposely do it. They'll watch you and they'll stand right next to the skinned animal, or just need the animal to be skinned. And they will spam the skinning button in order to steal all of your resources. This is one major issue because the game doesn't give you an option to stop them. You kind of just have to let them if they do that. I feel like the game needs either it has two options. Seeing as the game's a PvP game, you could either go with if you've tagged it and you're the first one to tag it, then you should have skinning rights. Be able to skin it within like say the first 20 seconds or something. Or if not, because it's a PvP game, they should flag the enemy as PvP tagged, but it's only a singular like it's only a tag that you and them can fight between. Like nobody else can fight this guy because because he's skinned this animal. But that leads to an issue where if they're a higher level and they have a lot more, it kind of leaves you in a bad situation because they're gonna have more than you to deal with fighting, which could be an issue. I see. PvP quests and PvP structure really doesn't have that much to it. It felt really shallow to me, personally. The quests themselves have you trying not to risk your own life in order to complete them, which I think really counteracts the point of really having them. I feel like, yeah, sure, it's nice to have the elite sort of gameplay, But what you'll find, and this actually happened during the beta, is that most people just avoided fighting each other. Even though they were PvP tagged, most people just avoided it, just so they could get their quest done. They really didn't want to fight. And then having that like debuff, or rather, that quest condition, just really ruined that PvP scenario. Most people don't even want to do PvP in closed beta, which is really upsetting, seeing as the game was pretty much PvP. Like its entire, what do you want to call it? Its entire base is based around being a PvP game. Though as time goes on, it's being it's stronger in PvE these days than PvP. PvP feels very shallow. Feels like a understatement of the game at this point. Places I think the game could go for a successful future mainly is to balance most of this PvP content to allow for healthy competition. Like, as I mentioned before, the debuffs to fighting, like movement speed debuffs, I think are kind of necessary in order for other weapons to grow or to like even be viable to fight. I don't feel like the slow that's currently in the game is even viable because most, as you saw in most cases, people were able to still get away even if you were to get there or like were to hit them. One example would be the spear throw. The spear throw is meant to knock down enemies, but it takes longer for you to throw the spear and them to get up than you to catch up with them. So there's definitely an issue there. And the only other thing I really have to say on like improvements, probably a consistent PvE economy via trade and instances. Where I talk about this is trying to set the game to be built around the idea of crafting things. Having a huge crafting system, which it pretty much already has, but one that has consumables that are really useful and are often consumed, would lead to a healthy economy, I think. In my opinion, anyway. These would actually be used in PvP as well, thinking about it. But honestly, I think that's pretty much it. The game is pretty solid in itself overall. I really like the beta. I'm actually looking forward to the other beta as well, because they said they weren't going to do another beta, but they're actually doing another one for like 3 days between in September 9th till 12th, I think it is. So it's going to be interesting where that goes. Apart from that, I'm really looking forward to playing it when it actually does come out at the end of September. Well, guys, this is pretty much my review for the closed beta test that happened in August. Oh, it wasn't August, was it? It was... God, when was it? In July, that was it, in July. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.